Hello, beautiful human. Welcome to another episode of Thrive. My name's Carly. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I want to talk all about vulnerability and authenticity. And I want to start on a very vulnerable and authentic note. And if you have listened to the podcast before, you will know that typically the way that we roll here is that I'm very unscripted. I'm very, very much feel into the message that I want to share at the time, and I go with it and I share it and I trust, and I fully trust in what wants to come out will come out and that it will impact somebody. Okay, that's very much how we roll. And earlier today, I was thinking that I want to talk about this topic being vulnerability and authenticity in business, and how this is such an important piece and blah, 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 right? And so I started to write out notes, and I almost started to script this podcast. And I was like, oh, how interesting that I am almost borderline scripting an episode for the podcast, which I very rarely do, yet I'm scripting an episode where I want to speak into vulnerability and authenticity. And it just felt fucking yuck. And I wanted to share that with you because the way that I show up, my most authentic self, my most raw, my most real, my most vulnerable self is typically very unscripted. And I found it so interesting that I almost felt this pressure and this need to kind of talk about this topic in a more perfect manner, that I went against what feels most authentic and most good for me, almost. And then I decided to delete that tab in my notes app and show up in my most raw, real, authentic, vulnerable capacity that I possibly can, and share with you what comes from the heart. So here we are. Don't you think that today we just want to feel more connected to the people that we buy from? Because the whole, reason that this episode came up for me was I was sort of thinking about why people buy. And you know how there's that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I was like, when it comes to buying, especially when it comes to buying a service, we're coaches here, right? When it comes to engaging a coach or a mentor, buying a program, whatever, I truly believe that people don't buy they don't buy from you for what you do. They buy from you for who you are. Because there are thousands upon thousands of coaches out there. There are thousands upon thousands of business coaches, mindset coaches, life coaches, men's coaches, fucking manifestation coaches, whatever. But what makes somebody make a decision as to who they're going to engage as their coach, as to who they're going to work with in a program? It's not the content. It's not how many Zoom calls they get for the program. It's not how much access they get to the coach per se. But it is who you are. It is how you lead yourself, how you walk, how you take yourself and carry yourself through the challenges, through the things that feel tough. It's how you celebrate your wins. It's who you have become along the way. And I know why my people typically hire me. And they're not hiring me just because I'm one of the best offer creation strategists out there. They're not hiring me just because I'm one of the best people to help them refine their messaging so that they can call in more soul-aligned clients, right? Yes, that is all part of it. Yes, I am a phenomenal coach, but they're not hiring me just because of that. They're hiring me because of who I've become along the way. And who I've been maybe in the past, and how I have transformed into this version of who I am now. And what do we know, right? All of the challenges that we face, the experiences that we move through, the path that we walk, that's what makes us who we are today. I was almost going to say that's what defines us, but it doesn't necessarily define us. Who we are, who we choose to be in this moment is what really defines us. But these experiences that we have along the way, that is really what makes us who we are today. Okay? It's the courage that you've had to show up with in those moments where life has felt really hard. It's those moments where you've had to just like peel yourself up from the floor and get up again and again and again. It's those failures that you've experienced and what you have done as a result of those failures. It's all of those times that you have kept going when a lot of people would quit. And I think it's really important to speak to this because a lot of people that I am speaking to, particularly in my containers where we're exploring their messaging and we're exploring what makes them the coach, what makes them the one, what makes their program the no-brainer for their ideal soul clients to join. And it's not about the coach. It's not about the program. It's not about the Zoom calls, as I said before. It's about you and what you have walked through. And I think that one of the most powerful exercises that you can do as a coach is to really let yourself like go and marinate in all of the things that you've walked throughout your life. Go and make a cacao or a coffee or have a glass of wine or a joint, whatever, and go and sit and just let yourself journal and reflect on all of those experiences that you have walked through. Write them all down. And what you're going to find at the end of that, you're going to read through this list of experiences and you're going to be like, I remember who the fuck I am now. I really see who I am now. And you're going to then, like, once you're reconnected to this, and this happens for me because I've done this a couple of times before on my journey when I've just needed that, that little check and that little reminder of, oh yeah, that's who I am. Like, of course. But it's like, when you reconnect to that, you remember who you are. And all of a sudden, you start to show up with a lot more conviction in who you are. You start to show up with a lot more confidence in who you are because you remember, you know what, if I've walked through that, then I can get through anything, right? And the reason I'm talking about this is because when you then show up in this way, when you then show up from this place and sharing your stories is such a powerful piece to building those relationships and building connections with your people. They are going to feel that power within you, okay? And that is what separates you from all of the other coaches who are doing all of the other things, who are doing all of the same thing, right? Because you could go out there and learn a skill from anybody. But when you join, like when you work with a coach, are you wanting to work with a coach purely just to get that skill? Or are you wanting to work with them because you know that you can gain so much more? You know that you can gain so much more about how to carry yourself and how to move through the challenges, how you can lead yourself when things feel hard. Okay, because you can go out there and work with a coach who can teach you how to, post reels on Instagram, and you can learn how to do the thing. But are you choosing the coach who has experienced the failures, who knows what it's like to keep showing up and to keep creating and to keep putting themselves out there even when it feels like nobody is listening? Are you choosing the coach who has had to really dig deep and tap into their own courage resources, who has had to build that resilience, who knows what it is like to get knocked down and then get back up and get back up and get back up and to keep going? Because there is a very, very big difference between a coach who has carried themselves through that and who can show you leadership in that area as well, as opposed to a coach who hasn't done that before in their life, as opposed to a coach who has not experienced necessarily those challenges. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody or anything like that, but this is purely to highlight to you there is so much magic in you sharing who you are, in you sharing what you have been through, and in in you actually bringing that and weaving that into your work and into your content, because that is what is going to give people a far deeper understanding of who you are and what their experience is going to be like when they choose to work with you. Okay? As I said before, like, I know that my clients don't just hire me because of how I can, help them transform and create their offers and transform their messaging. I can do that in my sleep, and they know that. But they hire me because they want a certain level of strength. They want a certain level of character. They want a certain level of courage within somebody. And most of all, they want somebody who is human. Okay, they want somebody who has been in the trenches and who knows how to move through that. Okay, they want someone who is human. We all want someone who is human. And when we are hiding behind this perfection and these walls, like, we're not allowing our human to be seen and to be felt. Okay, we want to know people's stories. We want to know the struggles that they've been through, but we also want to know how they came out of them. We want to know how they led themselves out of them, because we also want this evidence that it's possible for us too, right? Like, if you're in the trenches right now, you want to know, you want to learn from someone who has been there, because you want to know what is possible for you on the other side as well. Okay. And this is how you move beyond being just someone who provides a service or someone who is a coach, right? And you become somebody who, like, people want to truly connect with, because they see your authentic journey. They've seen maybe your vulnerability, and they realize that they too, that's actually possible for them as well. Now, I think as well that we are exhausted. We're exhausted from all of the years and however long that we've been bombarded with all of these polished images. We've been bombarded with all of the flawless stuff and the, make $10,000 in your first month of business kind of thing, right? And I think that being authentic and sharing more about your journey and your story and your challenges, this really resonates with a lot of people, because it's a lot more rare. Okay. I mean, I think it's becoming more common now. We're starting to remove the masks. We're starting to show more of our real selves, but we don't want to engage with people who are wearing the masks anymore. We want to connect and learn from and work with and spend our time and our energy with leaders who aren't afraid to show their vulnerable side, who are being really transparent and honest about elements of their journey, about their life within business and outside of the business. And we want to be working with people who will acknowledge that, yeah, okay, I am successful, right? But it hasn't just come overnight. And these are the things that I experienced on my road to where I am today. Okay. Because we know that, most of us know that overnight success is not real, And we don't become successful by never making mistakes. We don't become successful by never failing, right? That's all part of it. And I think that if we can show that journey, we can be more transparent, we're going to connect with people way, way deeper. And for me, this podcast has been such an amazing way to share at a much deeper level and to share a lot more vulnerably and more authentically. And I've had so many people who have said hey, I was following you on Instagram for however long, but when I listened to your podcast, that's what made me decide to work with you and to hire you as my coach, because I got such a different view into who you are. And I got such a deeper understanding of what you've experienced and how you've led yourself through that. So ask yourself as well, where are you holding back on sharing the pieces of your journey that maybe your people really want to see? These pieces of your life that have made you who you are today. And how can you share that through the lens of not share? I always love to say, right, what do I say? Your mess becomes your message, right? But I also believe that there is we want to share our mess and our message from this place of not being in the depths of it right now, okay? We want to be able to share our mess and our message from hey, you know what? This is where I was in this fucking pit not long ago, and this is how I came out of it, and this is where I am today. Okay, side note. So the other piece that I wanted to speak to on this is that when we are authentic, when we show up as who we truly are, that's when our soul clients begin to find us. And you can relate this to all areas of your life, right? Like I've found this to be particularly true in friendships and relationships as well. When I have been my most authentic and the most me, that is when the people who I know are meant to be in my life have come into my life. And one of the biggest examples that I probably speak about quite a bit is how my entire friendship circle changed at the beginning of last year, maybe the end of the year before, whatever it was. And I'd been in this place where I was like finding myself again. I was coming out of my my marriage, and I had been living on the other side of the country for a period of time, and a lot of my friendships had just sort of naturally started to dissolve because we just weren't in the same place anymore, and I'd had an extended period of time away, and that's just how it was. And what that really gifted me was this opportunity to go within myself and start to understand and learn more about who I was again so that I could begin to show up in that way. Because I don't know if you have found this before, but I have always found that if I am not being my true self, then how am I ever going to possibly attract the people that I really want to have in my life? And I had found that a lot with friendships and past relationships as well, right? I'd always been that person who wanted to please other people and who would kind of say yes when I really meant no. But it was because I was afraid of not having these people in my life, right? So I would compromise on my values, and I would compromise on being who I truly was just to please other people, but not realizing that what that was actually doing was that was bringing in the people that weren't fully aligned for me and that were not meant to be in my life. And this is in terms of relationships, friendships, clients, you name it. And so when I sort of like began this quest to revamp my social circle, I went into that knowing who I was, and I went into this knowing what I wanted, how I wanted to show up, and how I wanted to be in my, sort of like my next level friendships. And so I went in there and I was just me. And I'm really grateful that I went into a community where it felt safe to be me. And I felt like I was accepted, but I also wasn't going to compromise on that either, because I knew what had happened in the past, and I knew that I had created friendships and circles that just didn't feel fully aligned for me, and where I wasn't showing up as my best self. So I wanted to change that. So I made a commitment to myself. I was like, I am just going to be who the fuck I am. And I let myself surrender, and I let myself take off the masks, and I let myself remove those barriers. And I was just so committed to being me. And I remember going in there and I was like, do you know what? Like, if I can go in there and be me, my people are going to find me. And if I feel like I am not comfortable enough to be myself, and that I have to kind of hide who I am, or that I, feel like I'm dropping into this people pleasing and, all of that kind of stuff, then I know that they're not my people. And I had this new awareness. And isn't awareness like incredible when you start to recognize what those old patterns were, and you can pick up if you're starting to repeat them, or you can pick up if you are starting to transcend them. And so I went into this community and these friendships, like just knowing, like I've just got to be who I am. And what I realized after a little while of just being able to be who I was that it took so much less energy. I didn't realize how exhausting it was not being my true authentic self in these other friendships and these other relationships until I wasn't. I did not realize the effort and the energy that I was expending trying to be someone who would come across in the perfect way for those perfect people and in the way that I wanted to be perceived, right? I did not realize how much energy that was actually sucking from my life force until I had made this commitment and I started to just show up as myself and just be me. And it was like I could just breathe and I could exhale. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay. this is why life has been feeling hard. Because I was constantly worried about saying the right thing or saying the wrong thing. I was constantly worried about not being enough for people. Whereas it didn't even occur to me to ask, are they enough for me? Or are they the right kind of people for me? Am I feeling satisfied and fulfilled from this interaction? And this is where we kind of get to now look at this through the lens of, right, we're attracting our clients. How can the soul client that you want to work with possibly even be on the same frequency as you if you are not prepared to be who you truly are? And if you are not prepared to like speak for what you believe in and to just be who the fuck you want to be and to show up in your fullest expression, how can they actually find you? Because I'm telling you right now, if you're hiding under the radar, if you're playing small, if you are watering yourself down, if you are holding back from sharing what is true for you, and you're just sharing what you think people expect you to say, and you're just wanting to try and please everybody, you're too afraid to repel, right? So you're not really going to attract all these people. They're not going to be on the same frequency as you. So you can then raise your frequency, raise yourself up purely by being who you are. And then all of a sudden, you'll find that you're on the exact same frequency as your soul clients. And then all of a sudden, bang, 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 they're starting to be attracted to you. They're starting to ask you questions about how they can get into your programs and that kind of thing. But they can't see you when you're not being you. Let that land for a second. These people that you want to have in your programs, they can't find you. They don't even know you fucking exist right now because you're not on the same frequency. And you get on the same frequency by tapping into who you truly are if you don't know who you are yet, and by being who you are, by speaking how you want to speak, by saying what you want to say, by showing up in the way that feels most authentic to you. And then all of a sudden, you're on the same frequency and they find you. That has been game-changing for me. And you know what? Vulnerable share here. Every now and then, I notice myself, this goes for business, this goes for real life relationships too. Like, not that business isn't real life, but you know what I mean, behind the scenes. I notice myself still dipping into those old patterns. I notice myself going, oh shit, if I say this thing, is this person going to judge me or are they not going to like me? But now the difference is I have this awareness and I can catch myself and then I can make a different choice. Okay, so be gentle with yourself as well. If you're on this journey and you're like, oh, like I know this is who I am now, but I'm finding myself dipping back into those old patterns. That's okay. This is a practice. It's a journey. But the gift you now have is the awareness. So you can now make a different choice. You can't make a different choice when you're not aware that it's happening. The final thing that I want to say on this is that when you give yourself permission to show up fully as you are, in your most authentic self, as vulnerable as you like, because you don't need anybody else's permission, just remember that. But when you give yourself the permission to do that, you're giving others that permission too. And again, they don't need your permission either, right? But you'll find that you are going to inspire other people to show up as themselves too, okay? And what a gift that is to give somebody else who's in your energetic field. The gift of you being authentic so that they feel safe to drop into their authenticity and be authentic with you too. All right, this has been a lot of fun. I'm so glad that I stopped myself from scripting and making notes because we've totally freeballed this episode and it's been a lot of fun. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know. Share it with your friends. Drop in and give us a 5-star review. Pretty please. I am so grateful for you being here and just for you choosing to listen to this podcast, this episode. It is not lost on me that you have I don't know how many podcasts to choose from, fucking hundreds of thousands that are out there, and you've chosen to listen to this one today. So thank you so much. I fucking love you. And until next time, you've got this.